Hi everyone, I'm back to film my last Oden's Eye Perfect World palette. This is going to be the one with battybean, and it is the most colorful one. Now, it is super colorful, and I feel like if you did get it, it would be more of a companion palette. Now, I definitely am most excited for the shade Animalia, which is right here. Hopefully we can still have fun with this, but yeah, as always, please don't take anything I criticize about this palette as a dig against these creators. I do watch all three creators that were Oden's Eye collab with. I do really like all of their content. I think battybean is really great at creating super colorful eye looks that don't look muddy. So for the first look, I really want to be able to do something that revolves around Animalia, so I'm going to stick with orange and pink today, and then that way I can put Animalia all over my eyelid. I definitely want to see how that performs. I'm really hoping that I'm not let down, so I'm going to go ahead and start off with Rescue, Habitat, and Sanctuary. Rescue is a hot pink, Habitat is a bright orange, and Sanctuary is kind of a darker, more red-toned, desaturated. I am using the Rare Beauty eyeshadow primer. It is extremely humid today. It's been raining all weekend. My eyelids are a little bit dry, so I decided to use this instead today. And of course, as always, I don't ever set my eye primer. You know, I don't have the kind of lid space that battybean and a lot of other creators do, so I'm just going to make sure I am very precise with where I put all these colors. And then I'm going to take Rescue, and I'm thinking I might put it kind of up here. And I'll let you guys know if this shade stains. Yeah, we're kind of starting off like this. This is definitely one of those moments where you just have to trust the process. And there's little like tiger stripe imprints on all the pans. Very cute. I was kind of surprised to see battybean produce this palette, I'm not gonna lie. Her looks tend to really go from very light to very dark. So to see this palette have essentially no light or dark value colors in here, it's all just mid value. It was kind of weird to me for sure. It didn't really strike me as something that she usually would do. Of course, maybe she wanted to try something different. That is completely fine, and the looks that she created with it on her channel were all very beautiful. And then I'm going to go into Sanctuary, and I'm going to put that on the outer corner. This look is not going to be super dark, as you can kind of tell. Rescue and Sanctuary could probably have been made a little bit more visually different from each other. I think Sanctuary could have been made a little bit darker. And as you can see, I'm just going to wing out the look. And this shade also is building very nicely. And so far across all of my videos, I know my looks haven't been structurally super complicated, but with the way that these palettes have been set up, it kind of just feels like they are kind of more meant for simpler looks, especially with Sea Talk and Flora Story. So I do kind of, if I have time, want to go back and experiment with those palettes some more, using fewer shades without the pressure of having to use every single shade in the video. This, by contrast, I definitely feel like I'm putting more shades on my eyelid and it's not looking as messy. Alright, so this is the matte situation so far. Pretty good. I do want to go back into Habitat though. I think I need to add it a little bit more. Looked a little bit brighter in the pan, but it's not quite super ultra neon on the eyelid. Yeah, this orange is not really building up the way I was hoping it would. And I had actually the exact same issue with the orange in Cosmic Brush's Serenity, where the orange just seemed to not want to build on itself. I'm gonna take a clean brush and just really buff out these edges. And I have been using a brush for the past two looks, and then for the past two videos, I've been using mostly brushes for shimmers, and I felt like it always ended up looking messy, so to speak, so I'm gonna switch to using my fingers. I know my nails are kind of long right now, but that's not gonna stop me. Animalia is so pretty. I definitely hope that this can look good on my finger, so I'm just gonna stamp this all over. And I did not put down glitter glue just to see how this shade performs without a tackier base. So this shade actually has very heavy base pigment, and then it has reflex in it. So it's actually not quite as shiny and metallic. It's almost borderline feels kind of satiny, but it has an extreme amount of base pigment to it, so it's got very opaque coverage. The gold reflect is very pretty, so it really meshes with this eye look, but I'm kind of losing the duochrome aspect of it a little bit, I guess I could say. It's not looking quite as I expected. It is very pretty though. Its favorite coral gold shade in my collection is definitely Antares from Terra Moons. I feel like a lot of it tends to want to stay on my finger as well, not as much as transferring onto my eyelid, probably just because I don't really have like the tackiest base ever on. But yeah, once it's on my eyelids, it does look very pretty, but I feel like it's not looking how I was anticipating it looking. That's what it looks like on the heel of my hand. Yeah, so you can see it almost actually has just like gold glitter, but then the pink base is actually quite matte. Kind of different, not what I was expecting. It's not really truly a shimmer. It's almost like a matte with very, very, very obvious glitters in it is actually what it feels like to me. So I don't hate it, but it's not what I was hoping for at the same time. So it's not going to fulfill the purpose that I was hoping it would. Still quite interesting, so we'll roll with it. Yeah, so as you can see, it didn't end up giving me quite the dimension that I was hoping for, so I am gonna also go into Majestic, which is kind of this like, I'm gonna use this over top for some added dimension. It looks okay on the eyelid with a finger once you put it down. It was kind of crumbly, but it looks good. It's not, you know, squishy or thick feeling, which is nice. But yeah, you can kind of see the crumbles on my finger, but it's not too bad. And I'm just gonna put this, kind of focus it on the inner part. And lastly, I do really need to touch up this lower lash line, so I'm gonna go ahead and use the orange on the lower lash line, see if I can get a better result out of this. I'm gonna go ahead and go into Animalia as well. Using Animalia to add depth to my lower lash line will be fun, and it'll also kind of let you guys see what I'm talking about with the whole matte with sparkle situation. Definitely be careful though. I'm hoping I don't get too much fallout as I work with this. So do you see how it almost just behaves like a matte with sparkle? Props to them for making something new. Quite nice. Okay, so lastly I'm going to go into the shade Fauna. This looks like the transforming multi-chromish shade that is in every single palette. So I'm going to use this on my inner corner, and we'll see how this affects the gold underneath. This is not what I was going for. Just kidding. I'm going to go back into Majestic and cover that up. I'll just bring Majestic into the inner corner. And I'm going to use Fauna on the lower lash line. So I'm going to use this to transform what's under here. Yeah, this is much better. And then lastly, I think I will take Fauna on my upper eyelid, but I'm going to use it kind of like back here. I'm just going to use this as a scattered transforming topper. And I'm just very, very sloppily scattering it across my eyelid. There is no real precision here. Honestly, it's probably barely visible, but it does add a very subtle pink effect to my eyelids. Okay, and then I do really wish my inner corner was a little bit brighter than everything else because my look feels a little bit flat, especially since the dark shade is not necessarily super dark. So I am going to use my own personal highlighter as my inner corner highlight. This, I'm going to like kind of take these, and I'm going to use that on the inner corner to really just brighten things up. It's also a lot smoother too, so you can see it definitely also adds nice textural contrast there. Okay, and this is going to be my finished look number 1. I actually really like how this turned out. Animalia definitely kind of surprised me, but not like in the worst way possible. I am actually feeling this look quite a bit. I do actually really like it, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish off this look and then I'll be right back. Okay, so this is gonna be my finished look. I was using a finger to apply my lip products because I actually have a cold sore brewing on my lower lip, so I tried to not actually put applicators on my mouth during that time, and I accidentally pushed the lips out too far because I'm messy, so if my lips look really weird, just please excuse it. But here's the finished look. We definitely became fruity and I don't mind at all, honestly. I am very blush heavy today, which honestly is how I like to be. So yeah, we had a lot of fun. I ended up just using only mascara because the eyeshadow was not super dark, so if I just had mascara on, I figured it would be okay because my lashes will show. It's not like I'm trying to apply mascara to a very dark smoky eye, which usually just makes my lashes disappear. I also thought it would be good occasionally for me to do no false lash looks for you guys, because that way those of you who don't wear false lashes on a regular basis, which I'm sure is most of you, can still see some pretty intense eyeshadow looks but without like false lashes on. So for blush, I am currently working my way through making content about the new Blend Bunny Juicy Cheeks palettes. I did get both. And then for highlighter, I used a mixture of shades from the Jaclyn Quad, which I haven't used in a while. I keep moving my face palettes around to different places around my desk, and ultimately wherever they ended up I would just forget they were there and stop using them, so I finally just gave up and put them back in a drawer right under my desk where they used to be when I used them more often. And I definitely feel like I'm noticing them more now because I can just open the drawer and look at them as opposed to them being all the way behind me in the barister. And so on the topic of using face palettes I haven't used in ages, I used the Face Nugasm thingy from Charlotte Tilbury. Again, I really only bought this palette for the bottom two shades and I don't mind at all because they're really good, so it's a kind of a crime that I forgot about it for this long. But with it being right next to my desk, I hope to remember to use this more often. And then for lips, I lined my lips with I kind of used like a new like a lippy colored kind of matte mousse thing, and I used that my finger to kind of overline my lips as opposed to using my lip liner because of my cold sore. And then I used these two products from Roman to create a lip gradation so that it's like kind of a warm orange fruity lip as well. Really unique shades. I'm very happy that these are in my collection from Roman, so whenever I need an orange lip I just automatically go for these. I think I'm getting a much better feeling about this palette than I did the first two that I'm using, which is so funny to me because initially if I could have only had one, I definitely would have gone for Flora Story. And then when I saw that somebody online was not going to use the other two in PR, so I went ahead and got them. I thought Sea Talk I would like more, and so I filmed with Flora Story first and then Sea Talk. I actually really like the look that I got out of this. I definitely think using a finger had something to do with that, so I'm going to probably go back into the other two palettes if I ever have a day where I'm not filming. Right before I go to bed, I'll mess around with the shades on my eyes. I want to see what happens if I use my finger for those as well and see if maybe the look looks a little bit less messy. And in the meantime, we'll go on to look number 2. Hi everyone, I'm back to film look number 2 using Planet Spirit. And I definitely am going to, of course, make sure I focus on the greens and the purples and whatever. I am going to start off first with, I think, Kingdom, which is right here. And I want this to go in the outer corner. My brain is slightly fried. I do have to make sure that they get fed once every 3 hours. And their medication routine is currently pretty rigorous. And just making sure that I am doing my best, especially with their eyes being so bad. You have to really make sure you're on top of things. Eyes can go downhill so quickly, especially in kittens, and then you could end up potentially with permanent loss of vision, which it's not the worst thing in the world. Cats are actually very adaptable to things like that, but if you can try, then you know, you try. And so then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a different brush, and I'm going to go into Pride, which is that purple. Now for the first look, the bright vivid pinks, even though I only wore the look for a total of maybe like 5 hours, the bright pinks stained very slightly. So I think if you get a full day of wear out of the pink shades, you may get some staining. But for only a couple hours, it was not very bad. I have definitely noticed indie formulas do not stain like they used to. The formula coming to mind being the most notorious for staining, definitely being Menagerie Cosmetics. I know even in their Feral palette, on Whale Song especially, the staining was just almost beyond what should be accepted. I just didn't mind because I don't really mind staining, but like if you wore colorful eyeshadow one night and then you had to go to work the next morning and your work like didn't want a ton of eyeshadow or makeup on, then you'd be going to work the next morning and I could imagine people being like, what is on your eyelids? And you'd have to like try and explain that it's like residual staining. But these days I've noticed that even vegan formulas that are colorful just don't stain like they used to, which is awesome. I definitely think that means that probably both primers and eyeshadow formulas have really come a long way. I am kind of using it a little bit more diffuse. I'm not really trying to pile these shades on super intensively, which is why they don't look super pigmented. I do want to kind of take a smaller brush now though, and I do think I will go in with Kingdom again. I just want it to be a little bit more intense. I did use the Rare Beauty primer. It's not set. I've been wanting to get my hands on Sigma's Ignite eye base for a while. I just haven't really had the chance yet. I'm not really trying to mix these two shades together too much, but this is more of like a blue-green, and then the purple is, you know, it's a mixture of blue and red, so they're not going to mix together to make a totally unpleasant combination should they mix. Alright, so I packed it on a little bit more. I do feel like it's not quite totally opaque. Now I am still, of course, even when I put on more layers, I'm still being kind of gentle because I can be sometimes a little bit delicate with my eyeshadows. So I'm just going to go ahead and start going straight into the shimmers because I do want this to be a pretty shimmer heavy look. So I think what I'll do is I want to use Familiar and Kindred, and I am going to kind of do like a gradient situation. So I'm gonna take Kindred on a brush, and we'll see how, like I said, I've not really had the greatest experience with the shimmers in this entire collection, so I want this to go closer to my lash line because it looks like Familiar is going to be a lot chunkier. I don't really want that to be where I'm blinking. I don't want to feel it when I blink. And this mixes with the teal on my outer corner pretty well because this purple has a lot more blue in it than the matte. It's not the most dazzling formula ever, but in the context of the other shimmers in the Perfect World collection, this does have more base pigment than I've been seeing, so I do appreciate that at least. But it's by no means foiled or smooth. Dry, crumbly, it almost feels that way. It's not quite though, so it's not like it's disappointing me, but it almost feels that way. I'm going to take Familiar, so you can kind of see here, do you see how Familiar looks much chunkier than Kindred? So I'm going to now take Familiar and just, you see how I left that gap? I'm just going to stick Familiar there, and again I'm using a brush. Picks up pretty well. And as you can see, this shade does have a much more kind of sparkly topper-esque quality to it. I think this shade definitely would be one that would benefit from a glitter glue, but as you can see with a sufficiently stiff, dense, flat brush, I can begin to make it a little bit more opaque in terms of coverage if I want. I do think, however, okay, so first off, the pimple is still healing. But you can see how it's kind of patchy right around my pimple. Now I'm pretty sure it's more my pimple's fault than the shadow, but this patchiness here, that is right where my pimple is still healing. It's still not completely smoothed out yet. Okay, so that's what it's looking like right now. I kind of want to take my finger and go into Kindred. Yeah, see, on my finger it's just not, this is not it. But I am going to put more on using my finger and see if I can smooth the shade out a little bit. And you know, putting on more, I still can kind of feel it when I blink, which is not my favorite. I will say I haven't really had any significant issues with wear time with these shadows, even when I complain about the fact that I can feel it when I blink. At the end of the day, even if I know in many instances here I've only worn it for maybe like 4 to 6 hours, but like 2 or 3 times where I was able to actually wear it for like over 10 hours even, I didn't have any creasing. So even though I can kind of feel it, even though it's kind of thick, it doesn't crease, it doesn't move around, it stays pretty put. And I know wear time is very important for a lot of people, so even though the shadows aren't necessarily the greatest in terms of finish, I feel like most people would rather have that kind of shadow with a really good wear time over a shadow that looks good but only for like 2 hours. I'm not saying that I'm okay with Oden's Eyes shimmers being so like hit or miss these days, but at the very least so far, in the palettes, I've never tried their singles, by the way. In the palettes, I've not, at the very least, their wear time doesn't seem to be any worse than normal, so that's good at least, right? Which is why I kind of have been thinking in my head, it seems like they're just having issues scaling, because it's not like they're really trying to nuke the quality of their shadows on purpose. I'm going to now go back into Pride. I'm going to use a very small Blend Bunny brush. I'm going to try and pack on more now that the shimmer intensity has been established. I can pack on more Pride. I now can figure out how intense I want Pride to look. This shadow does feel a little bit dry and stiff. It's building very nicely and it's blending very well, so definitely better than that purple and Flora story. I do really want to try the Sugar Drizzle Mattes palette. I've heard it's actually like obscenely good, and the fact that she filled it with purples and then made it that good. It's just her flexing on everybody. That's what I've been hearing about it. I do want to try it eventually. I just, again, don't really have that kind of spare change right now. I'm loath to use Kingdom on the lower lash line because it could become bruisey so quickly, so I'm just gonna go ahead. I'm gonna take Pride out here, and then I think I'll just go ahead and use glitter glue so that I can put Kindred on the middle and inner third. Alright, so I stuck that there and it builds really well on the lower lash line, blends really well, so definitely a really nice purple. Alright, so you can see it definitely was able to stick to that glitter glue pretty well, and I get a more opaque layer as if I used my finger. Glitter glue can make just about anything look really good. And then I do want to take just a little bit of Familiar and just drop that right in the middle just for a little bit of color continuity. I think it'll be a fun flash of color in the middle as well. I do really like Familiar. I think Familiar is actually a really great shade. I'm surprised that I ended up enjoying using Planet Spirit more than the other two. Thought that I was gonna like Planet Spirit the least, which is why I put it off for last. So that's what we're looking like. So all that's left now is gonna be the inner corner highlight. Now this palette, the one thing that it is lacking is kind of like options for an inner corner highlight, which is completely fine. So I am just going to go ahead and use what they gave us, and I'm going to go into Fauna, and I'm going to be using this on top of nothing, whereas for the first look I believed I used this almost like as a transformative shade. So as you can see, on top of just my bare skin on the inner corner, it's really not that exciting. It definitely comes to life on top of other shadows. You know what I probably should have done is I probably should have used Majestic underneath this and then used this on top. Okay, so that's gonna be what this is all looking like so far. I really do think I need just something a little bit brighter on the inner corner, so forgive me. But I am going to go ahead and I'm gonna use this from Roman. This is in the shade 02. I don't generally buy Korean highlighters because they can oftentimes just be straight chalk. This one is soft, but it's soft in a very pretty way, so I'll just use a little bit of this on top. See, just a little bit, and you see how that just makes a very soft difference. So that's gonna be this finished look, so I'm going to finish off the rest of my makeup and then I'll be right back. Okay, so this is gonna be my finished look. Excuse my hair, I've not had time to wash it yet, but it definitely does need to be washed. But this is gonna be what everything is looking like. I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. So just to kind of quickly sum up my thoughts about the entire Perfect World collection, I feel like I definitely didn't get the same results, and I'm not feeling the same way I did about this collection as I did for Legendary Diversa. The standard that Legendary Diversa set, I think this could not quite match up to it, but those were some very big shoes to fill. I think mostly just because the quality of the shimmers was so hit and miss this time. I feel like it's just not really quite up to what I expect from Oden's Eye. Now, by no means were any of these palettes bad. As I said before, the wear time on all of these shadows was honestly pretty impressive, and everything turned out looking fine. I definitely think if you're not somebody who likes to use your fingers to work with shimmers, you probably are going to be disappointed, because the shimmers in the Perfect World collection seem to look far better with my finger than with a brush. But obviously that's not for everybody, and even I don't always want to do that, because if I need the precision, then my fingers obviously aren't going to give that to me. I think glitter glue, thankfully glitter glue seems to be pretty optional here. As you can see, there were instances where I used glitter glue, especially for my lower lash line, but it was by no means necessary, and it didn't affect the wear time at all whether I used glitter glue or not. So that was really great. So yeah, the quality is solid, but it's not what I expect from Oden's Eye, especially because Oden's Eye shimmers have been really good. You know, I know they can be better. I feel like the price went up because it's like $34 for 10 shades, and I feel like you used to pay that much and you'd get like 12 to 15 shades. Like, is it just me, or is that true? So I think for the price, I definitely kind of was hoping that these would be better. I will say I am a little bit irritated that all three palettes seem to have one of those super like crumbly, almost color poppy-esque shimmers in them. I think yeah, every single palette there was at least one. I'm a little disappointed in that because I know Oden's Eye can do way better than that, so I wish it had just been more of a standard smooth foiled metallic as opposed to what I got. But as you can see, it still doesn't look terrible, you know, it still ends up looking good. It just is a little weaker than I have come to expect. So that pretty much is, I think, the most consistent theme of my feelings with this collection, is just that objectively speaking they're good, but in the context of what else Oden's Eye has made, I just feel a little bit let down. So I hope that Oden's Eye can get it together in terms of manufacturing. I know it can be very hard to scale up when your demand grows, especially if you grow a little bit faster than you expected. It's not easy keeping up with that, so best of luck to them. I don't think this is going to obviously put me off of Oden's Eye. If I see something I like from them in the future, I'll buy it. I still really want their highlighters, the Simone highlighters. There are still a couple shades from that I'm eyeing whenever I get the budget to do so. I did see that they're back in stock, so hopefully I'll be able to get them before they sell out again. But as for what's on the rest of my face, I did use Juicy Cheeks on my face, and I have B-roll with this again. I used these two shades here, and then I used Raw, just to kind of blend everything out. And then I used my kind of all over, more like loosely applied highlighter was the Becca Lilac Geode. And I don't know if it's just me, I used to think Becca highlighters were the best, but for some reason now they seem so unimpressive. I don't know if the formula's gone off, because these are not that old, okay, but they are getting up there. I don't know, has the formula changed, or maybe it's just these highlighters are not that good and I now know what a good highlighter is. I have no idea. But I used that, and so then on my nose and for a little bit more impact on my cheeks, I used Revelation from Flower Nose, which is very pretty. So I used that, as you can see, on my nose, and then I kind of just like right in the center here, you can see this bright spot. I used it just to brighten up the highlighter a little bit more. And then for my lips, I lined my lips and I used the YesStyle 05. This is the Candy Glaze stick. I got this from the most recent Sephora sale. I have one shade, and so I picked up another shade, and I would really like to have more of their shades as time goes on. It's just that these have only been at max 20% off and they're very expensive. So that's going to finish up everything with this face, and that's going to finish my video, and that's going to more or less conclude my thoughts on Perfect World. I'm very whelmed. You know, I'm just like, oh, it's good, but like I thought it'd be better, but it's not bad, but I thought it would be better. It's like kind of my feeling. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you have any more questions about Oden's Eye or whatever, definitely feel free to let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back with more eyeshadow palette content very, very soon. And with that, I'll hopefully see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye!